Welcome to Darker Days Radio, and this is a new series, start of a new series of mini-series, I guess. These are Darker Days deep dives, where we'll be looking at a particular game. We'll be doing some setting exploration, we'll be looking at character creation, we'll do some actual play, and then we'll do kind of a bit of a debrief. These are all, just games we want to try out, games we like, and honest kind of opinions. They're not really reviews. They're more helpful for you, the listeners, who are thinking, what's that game actually like? Rather than having us just talk and act in character, we will make sure you understand the setting and mechanics so that you can follow along at home. I'm one of your regular hosts, Chris, and I'm joined by a plethora of Darker Days Radio hosts. We have got Chig, we've got Crystal, we've got Mike, and we've got David. And briefly, as a quick introduction, this is the first part of a three-parter. It should be a three-parter for Imperium Maledictum, which is a Warhammer 40,000 RPG by Cubicle 7. It is a sibling to Wrath and Glory. You can always go to our YouTubes and look at our videos for Wrath and Glory. But this is a sibling to it, but has a very different themes but it has mechanics that you'll also be familiar with if you go and look at our YouTubes of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th edition. So I think we'll skip gaming news. We'll keep that for our regular episodes because we've got a lot to go through. Questions then. Where should we begin? It uses percentile dice. We're back with that.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. There's been a couple of Warhammer 40,000 role-playing games that have used percentile dice. Obviously, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay in the past. And if I recall correctly, there was some percentile mechanics, some core mechanics in Inquisitor, the war game, the 54mm one back in the day too.
It was fully percentile.
Yeah, except for you had to roll the D6s.
Action dice.
Yeah, you had to roll the D6s for actions, which was
it was a role-playing game with minis, with large-scale minis, with no cost for anything. So you could arm a bloke with a rocket launcher and not pay for it.
Yeah. And as Mike said, there's been plenty of percentile Warhammer 40,000 RPGs in the past. We had Dark Heresy, we had Only War, we had Deathwatch. Yeah. What was the other one? What's the one where you played actual chaos? I can't remember its name.
Black Crusade.
Black Crusade,
one. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. And I think
and Rogue Trader.
From a historical standpoint, if you look back with interviews with Graham Davies and other original writers of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, one of the reasons why they went with a percentile system is because they're all big fans of Call of Cthulhu, which again uses percentile and worked well with the Warhammer 40k and fantasy stat block as well. You just had to multiply everything by 10, and then boom, you had the equivalents in the role-playing game.
Yeah, and that's a good point to make. The point to kind of reinforce, like, this game is an inheritor all the way back to Call of Cthulhu and those systems, because if you were to remove the entire 40k setting from this game and everything else, if you rub away all that, it is basically Call of Cthulhu. It's got rules for insanity, corruption, mutations, and there's strange gribblies out there that are going to make your brain melt and stuff like that. Okay, so for Crystal's and Chig's benefit, you've played Wrath and Glory, and you've played things like you've played a Sister of Battle, and you've played like a Commissar, and we've had in our parties things like we've even had an Eldari in the party. So, and obviously with stuff coming out and stuff I've worked on recently, there's a playable book for Eldari now for Wrath and Glory. There's a book coming out for more stuff for playable Space Marines. So those games allow you to play from the very basic ganger all the way up to tier 5 with the Marine book coming out. So proper Marines in Terminator battlesuits, they are going to kill fucking everything kind of job. So this game is not that, right? Your guys are not going to mow down mobs of cultists very easily, and they're certainly not going to be able to go happily toe to toe, one on one with a Gene Stealer. You could play Wrath and Glory and be like, I'm a Primaris Space Marine, I could take on a Gene Stealer with some confidence. This is not that game. This, I think, if you're fans of Warhammer 40,000, or if you're even aware of the stuff, this is like you are playing cadres of Imperial citizens who, due to their skills, have been selected by a patron to go into the wider galaxy, into the Imperium, to be their eyes and ears, and also do some downright nasty work in the shadows. Like you can't do that with a Marine. You can't be sneaky with a Marine. Marines don't need to be sneaky. You certainly can't be an Eldari quite happily just roaming the Imperium, and you definitely can't be a Drakari doing that. That's for certain. But so you're really just playing basic humans with. They might have a few cybernetics. They might have a bolt gun. You might be lucky enough to have a bolt gun, but it's very much more towards the kind of style of Warhammer Fantasy roleplay, but within the Imperium. You are in the gutters. This is grim, dark, gothic gutter punk. And if you are to compare your characters to things that are within Games Workshop media, there are things, obviously, like the Eisenhorn trilogy is the perfect example of his various associates that he selects, like an Adeptus Arbeit, or a ganger, or a pilot. These are just people that he's met and had to employ and then carried on with them in his warband. Or more recently, if you watch anything on Warhammer Plus, which is another opinion altogether, but if you watch Warhammer Plus, I do actually quite like the... Why can't I think of it right now? What's the animated series they had on there?
Hammer and Bolter?
Interrogator. No, Interrogator.
Interrogator,
and some episodes of Hammer and Bolter. And Interrogator is exactly the characters like they are. It is grim, dark, noir. So there's a noir element to it. People are going to stab you in the back. There's lots of intrigue. And you can happily, depending upon the cadre you're part of, you can happily interact with people from the hives in the manufactorums, through the Imperial Navy, parts of the Adeptus Mechanicus, and then up to nobility. But obviously, to interact with all these people really depends upon who your character is, who their patron is, and how they've built up their reputation, and how fucking sneaky they are as well. Because you can pull rank on people, but it will cost you, and certain alliances you'll have will mean you have problems with other groups. So that's kind of the view of it. So how does that make you feel at this juncture?
I mean, I'm okay with playing a random schmo of the Empire. Yeah, I'll give it a shot.
I kind of like the concept of like you are just kind of thrown into things with whatever you have, and there are bigger things that are happening than you, and basically you just need to survive.
Yeah. And that's a good thing. Like you say, there are bigger things going on because you are, I would say 90% of the time, your characters will never be on the front lines of the Imperium. You will never see, I think a game, you'd be quite happily playing a campaign of Imperium Maledictum. You will never see an orc. You will mostly never see an Eldari. Your characters may even think they're mythological boogeymen made up by the Imperium to keep the population in line. I
think one of the key things, which for the Imperium Maledictum human, you probably don't even know what chaos is. You're not taught about Xenos. You're not taught about chaos. You're just taught about the God Emperor is good, and that is it. Everything else is wrong.
Yeah.
So you even going off world for you will be a novelty or something you would never even have dreamed of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think playing off of that, David's definitely right in that when the core themes of this totalitarian setting that you're going to be playing in is ignorance. You don't understand the universe around you. You don't even understand how your own system and government really works. There will just be these black ships that come to your planet one day, and they'll just round up, thousands of individuals and then vanish. And it will just be something that falls into myth. You might learn a little bit from your patrons, and perhaps you'll be an Imperial Navy individual who's seen a few planets or something like that. There's many really dark but interesting things, and it can be, I think, a very interesting way to, through this, this corrupt totalitarian society 40,000 years in the future be a lens with which to view aspects of our own world and society and the darkest parts of humanity.
Okay. At which point that leads us into kind of like the factions. So part of, and we'll go. I think we're going to be doing some of our character creation today, but we'll be making one particular character, which is the patron. So, and this kind of like I feel builds off what we've seen in previous Cubicle 7 games. So, mainly from Wrath and Glory and Age of Sigmar Soulbound, where they're like, well, who does your party work for? This takes those ideas and then, rather than having some named ones that you can work for, gives you a framework for generating one. So you can, as a group, pick and choose things, or in the truest way of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay and thus Imperium Maledictum, you randomize, because randomization is where the fun is in this setting. So, as a brief overview, we've got a few factions we can pick from, and we can answer some questions we'll go through those. So we've got a table here to roll on to pick the Patron's faction. There is the Adeptus Administratum. There is the Adeptus Astra Telepathica. There is the Adeptus Mechanicus. There is the Adeptus Ministorum, the Astra Militarum, I would call it the Navis Imperialis, but it's the Imperial Fleet. There is the Inquisition. There are Rogue Trader Dynasties, and there is Infractionist. So, any questions about any of these? Or anything you go, I really hope we roll this. I really want that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be cool with exploring all these, because they not only determine your patron, but your characters will also be part of these factions as well. You might be working for a patron from a different one, but there's a good chance you come from one of these various origins as well. So maybe,
and if someone's got this, I was just going to say, if someone's got the form fillable sheet for our patron up on a screen and do this for me, that'll be a great help.
Who's rolling the first dice?
I mean, I can tell you that I'm very excited about the Imperial Navy because I started building an Imperial Navy force for 40k. So that would be pretty cool to explore.
You got really excited when you saw the Solar Auxilium turn up for Heresy.
Yeah.
You just want to wear a spacesuit, don't you? You just want to wear a void breaching spacesuit, or you want to be like Captain. Well, you want to be like, I don't know, maybe one of. If you're lucky, maybe are you maybe part of the bridge crew? Like, think Star Trek, but like worse. I think it's Star Wars, but
it's
worse.
Probably more Battlestar Galactica. I'm probably gonna be the alcoholic.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Colonel Saul tie, yeah.
Oh yeah. Except I've plenty of Amasek.
Except one eye's missing. Well, he loses an eye at some point, so it's just replaced by some bionic thing. Got some tubes floating around. Yeah, we'll see.
That's what you're excited for.
We'll see. Yeah.
Chick, anything that looks exciting there, or you want to know more about?
I would like to know more about the telepath guys, because from what I've gleaned over the years from you guys about Warhammer 40k is they're not really a good group, or they're a group made of not really great people, or something along those lines.
Well, that's just the whole setting, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but especially the guys who can open doors to hell with their brain. They seem like especially not the good guys.
So the Adeptus
I'd love to
Astra
see how
Telepathica,
we, as the heroes of the game, work for them.
Yeah. So the Adeptus Astra Telepathica
does exist. No,
they are they're basically they control a lot of information in the Imperium, because there is no fast and light communication other than by psychers. So the Astra Telepathica goes to worlds in their black ships and take tithes of psychers that have been rounded up by the planetary forces and by enforcers and so forth. Mm-hmm. Some of these psychers are shipped off back to Earth, back to Terra, to be soul bonded to the God Emperor and essentially sacrificed to power the Astronomicon, which is basically a big telepathic waypoint that can be seen in the warp when you're traveling through space.
Big shiny daddy hungry for psycho brain.
Yeah. Some of these will have a similar process done, but will be assigned to relay stations where you have choirs of psychers who send out messages and receive them across the Imperium. So you have these relay stations of all these psychers operating.
Right. So
and then if you're lucky,
being the guys who feed the Emperor, they're also the newsies.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then if you're lucky enough, you might be a psyker that is more independent and be not in one of those choirs and has the ability to obviously use their psychic powers for communication, or you might be a psyker that was noted for your natural ability because you had other psychic abilities, like biomancy or pyromancy or some of those other things, which were deemed far more useful in the field. And so you'd be a sanctioned psyker, perhaps associated with a commander of the Astra Militarum, and gone, hey, you're great as a psyker to communicate messages on the battlefield, but also you blow shit up really well. We're going to use you.
And when you say you in this sentence, you don't mean like our characters. You mean the character that our characters all work for.
You can play a psyker in this. You could be a psyker in this game. It is possible you could be that. Or you could be, obviously, underlings that work for a member of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica.
All right.
Someone with some clout. So that's what that group is like.
Well, they also do I think one of the key things to mention about them is, so we've got this idea that there are psychers out there, and most of them go and feed the thing that I've got the name of that feeds the Emperor. Astronomicon, that's the one. But there's also rogue psychers. So these are psychers who have not been caught by the black ships or been sent off to work with the Astra Militarum. And so the Telepathica, they go off and search for these rogue psychers because these are inherently dangerous people. These are people who have warp powers, but are not controlled by the Empire or Emperor or the Imperium.
Yeah.
So we could be normal humans, base human, and be
hunting
told
psychers
to go out and hunt the psyker. It's like, yeah, we're not going to send the good people to go out and hunt the psyker because we need them on the front lines. You squishy, unimportant people, you go find this person who might turn into a greater demon for us.
Right. We're the ones who
and that's the bad thing.
that there's a bad psyker there, and after we're wiped out to a man, they send in the actual team to bring them in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they'll send in like an inquisitorial force, yeah. Crystal, any particular thing that stands out you want to know more about or you like the sound of?
As someone who literally played the man when we did like Wrath and Glory, I'm looking like Rogue Traeger Dynasty and the Infractionists are two very interesting things that I'm like reading over, and I'm like trying to wrap my head around the fact that these guys basically are like, no, we totally aren't part of the Imperium or the Emperor or anything like that. But yet sometimes we help them out, and then other times we don't. And then so I'm just trying to kind of wrap my head around like that whole thing.
So rogue traders are they're dynastic families that have allegiances with also the families of psychers that are known as navigators, who have like a third eye, who essentially helps steer ships through the warp. So rogue traders are families built around trading across the Imperium and beyond. They're formally sanctioned by the Imperium to do that. Many of these ships also have like entire armies on board because rogue traders are also at the very forefront of reclaiming lost worlds, whether they're lost human worlds that were never part of the Imperium, or reclaiming Imperial worlds that have gone independent and thus committed heresy, or even going off and going, hey, friendly alien races, we're allowed to trade with you because it says on my little sheet of paper here, I can go where I want and trade with who I want, and no one can tell me otherwise. So there's quite a lot of clout with the rogue traders to do that. Obviously, there is a bit of rub with that with members of certain parts of the Imperium, like mainly the Inquisition. But the fact is, the fact that you can be, you're the eyes and ears of a rogue trader who has a massive flotilla, and you are on a world being the first kind of sneaky landing party that's learning about the world's politics and the who's and the wheres, to then go back and give back that information before then you have to do something more important, like the rogue trader goes, right, now I know who's in charge, go kill that person for me, or go steal that piece of archaeotech, or that weird piece of Xenotech I really like the look of and I want in my private collection. So that's kind of fun. Infractionists are kind of the same, but without the legal basis for it. They are
all the money.
They are your smugglers. They are your cold traders. They are your narco lords. They're your cultists. Also, they could be following. And when I say cultists, that could range from the really, really bad end of the spectrum, like they are chaos cultists. They may not know that they're actually venerating the chaos gods, but they are part of a cult that is definitely not imperial. And then you could be part of a cult that is not part of the accepted imperial creed, yet is still totally loyal to the Imperium. But because what you follow is prescribed, therefore you are technically, criminals and heretics. And then there's a lot of space in between. So again, we can happily, because we are not Cubicle 7, we are independent of that, we can happily go, hey, you want some ideas? Go to the Necromunda rulebooks and have a look at all the different nasty groups of individuals you could play as. You could be gangers working for you could play a game quite happily where you're patron and everything. You are based on one world in a hive city and you're just doing gang warfare type shit. That could just be what you're doing, and trying to make friends and influence people so you could raise your gang's prospects from being in the underhive up to the upper hive or become an accepted noble house. There's a whole politics you could go through with that before you even leave a world or before you even leave a hive city, which is pretty cool. So that's fun.
Yeah, I think the infractionists are probably the zestiest thing that they put in here, because that was it definitely wasn't in base Dark Heresy before, and certainly there's always been desperados and other things that are mentioned in some of these 40k role playing games, but I think this really opens up some great, really interesting options, so that you can play anything from gangers that you mentioned to even something like the Firefly crew. Going from world to world, dealing with these different criminal organizations simply because you are so unsanctioned.
It brings in something that is not really talked about quite much, other than kind of the Necromunda gang kind of thing. It brings in criminal enterprises. It brings in criminal empires. This is not something you see in most 40k lore. It's all the big high stuff.
Yeah,
some of the books you get, the
Warhammer Crime series, get into this a bit more. So it's definitely there. So shall we roll D100 then and find out what
dice? Absolutely. Write it down for us.
All right, who's doing it? Is it Chig or is it Crystal?
Crystal, you get the first roll.
All right. 68.
You are infractionists.
This is Inquisition in my book.
Yes.
Yeah, it says Inquisition.
No, 68, not 78. 68.
68 is Inquisition.
68, yeah.
Oh.
Infractions 91
in the hard copy rulebook.
Yeah, I'm looking at the rulebook right now. 55 to 24 is Inquisition. Page 17.
Yep. Yeah, I've got 75 to 94 is the Inquisition.
That's
65 to 74 is Infractionists.
And
are we all got different books?
They did do some errata on this book, which is something we should have mentioned up front.
Yeah, let's check the errata.
So are you looking at the physical book, Chris?
I'm looking at the physical book.
Okay, I've got the updated download.
Yeah, I got
I have the PDF that we have.
Is that more up to date?
I don't know.
I would guess so.
I would assume so.
Hold on a minute. I'm going to my drive-through RPG.
I've shared what I have in the Discord.
I'm gonna make sure I've got the most recent version downloaded. God damn it, that was crazy.
Yeah, that's what I've got as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I have too.
I say we just be both of these. Where Inquisitors outside the sanctuary.
I'm happy with either
if you're
result.
an Infractionist Inquisitor, that makes perfect sense, to be fair.
Oh god, no, that's...
Let's be Thorian.
We haven't even begun to discuss. We've not even begun to discuss being...
Let's embrace the chaos.
Radical Inquisition. Radical Inquisition is that's another thing we haven't even got started on.
Let's do it.
Let's see. Creating a patron.
Kill the Emperor.
Yeah. No, in my download copy of the most recent one, it says it's Infractionist. I've just downloaded from Drive-Thru RPG.
So we just play both.
Yeah, we play both.
So we're going with Infractionist.
I'm much happier, to be honest, with
Infractionist.
Infractionist than I am with Inquisitors, because Inquisitors is you can do that in Rogue in Wrath and Glory. So we're Infractionists.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Infractionist. So your patron has +2 influence with other Infractionists. So that goes on the sheet.
Let me find out where that goes. Faction.
They'll say influence somewhere.
Somewhere.
And then your duty, and this is what you've got, you can pick between. Do you want your patron to be A, criminal mastermind, or B, a merchant gilder?
I mean, criminal mastermind obviously is the fun one.
Yeah, I think we got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Your patron has thrived in the vicious criminal undergrounds of the Macarian sector, gaining significant power and resources and a desire for more. Their duty boon is plausible deniability, which means the patron counts amongst their servants some few who are willing to break the Lex Imperialis, so that's the imperial law, and face the consequences on their behalf. Once per mission, you can request that your patron send some of their plausible deniability connections to commit a crime of your choosing, such as starting a riot or distract corrupt Vigilites. So Vigilites are enforcers. They're like the police. I say police. That they don't really do much. They do law keeping, but they don't really
you said police.
stop crimes on your behalf. They stop crimes against the state. Kidnapping a preacher or during a sermon, or shooting the custom servitor bodyguard of a highborn noble. Additionally, your patron gains a further +1 influence with Infractionists.
Cool.
For a total of +3.
Right. Then I need someone to roll a D10 followed by a D10.
I got this. The first D10 roll is a 10.
A 10. So these are some descriptions of the criminal mastermind that they have associated with them. Their boon... Oh, sorry, this is their boons. Their boon is tentative alliance. So they have a tentative alliance with someone, which we'll have to figure out. And the other one?
And the second D10 is a 4.
And their liability is they have an enemy. So they have a particular enemy.
Guys, okay, listen. This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm coming up with. Okay, we're Infractionists, working for a criminal mastermind who is opposed to an Inquisitor, since we had that confusion. I think we're working for like a Bond villain right now. We're the henchman to a Bond villain, and James Bond is an Inquisitor.
Is our patron.
Do you know what would work well with that Bond villain? You want to go with taking an idea from Necromunda. Do you want a fallen noble? So someone's noble house that is no longer recognized. They're trying to reestablish it.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, that's spicy.
So there's actually a really one of the which we'll come to at some point. One of the subsectors in Setharis, I think, might work quite well with this, and that's Asterion, where it's all about the money.
Like
where it's all about the money.
So we need
noble from there.
Next, work out a motivation for our patron. Okay, so that's the wrong screen. There we go. Sorry, I've got too many things open. There we go. So motivation. So you got a D10 to roll.
Who's rolling this time?
Who wants to roll? You want me, or does someone else want to roll?
I'll roll. I got a die.
All right.
Okay.
All right, Mike, you go for
it's
it.
A 10.
I got no dice on me.
Oh, it's 10?
Yep, it's a 10.
It's 10.
Unity.
So it's unity. The patron believes that discord between factions is the biggest threat to the Emperor's realm and seeks to unify the Imperium. You will likely operate as problem solvers, brokering deals, and completing diplomatic missions. Your patron might ask you to defend an individual or a location to ensure the peace is kept, or send you to uncover and foil a plot to agitate conflict before it blossoms into all-out war. That's really weird.
Yeah,
so
it's
interesting. Fallen noble. They've fallen because they've disagreed with the current governance and how it's actually failing the emperor.
Or their house got set up.
Yeah,
their house got set up in the past by other noble houses who are the actual heretics and radicals. You're the A team. You're the A team, right?
Isn't that what we normally play? Like,
who's MacGyver? Who's playing MacGyver this time?
Right, okay, the next bit is the demeanor of the patron. So roll D10.
I got a 10.
Inscrutable.
Your patron conceals their personality behind a veneer of stoic professionalism or smooth geniality. Okay. Interesting.
How do we spell this? Inscrutable.
I think that also going with the theme and taking some ideas from Necromunda, I can imagine them wearing a almost Venetian mask, like that you can't even read their emotions at all. So they've totally cloaked themselves in secrecy. Like,
let's amp that up though. He's replaced his face with a Venetian mask so that he cannot reveal emotions.
Oh, that's
40K,
up, isn't it?
Yeah,
that is 40K. Excellent. By default, your patron will pay you the standard payment grade at the end of every few days. That means you will receive 100 solars. This may vary depending upon some other boons and liabilities. So let's have a look at those boons and liabilities that have turned up so far. So for our rogue, for our infractionist,
we have plausible deniability.
That was a duty boon. The other boon was tentative alliance.
Yep.
Let's have a look at that. Tentative alliance. Your patron is a political mastermind, adroit at forming short treaties with other factions, imperial otherwise. Before each mission, you can choose a faction you are aware of. Your patron has +1 influence with that faction until the end of the mission. So you can go into the mission and go, your patron could be like, I've gained the favor with the Adeptus Mechanicus. This should ease your, ease issues with them on your next mission. Or it could be, the Imperial Navy and has gained you passage on one of their transport vessels, stuff like that. Okay. So that's pretty cool.
This dude is awesome.
It's turning out bloody awesome.
Don't look at enemy.
Enemy -2 patron influence. Your patron has made an enemy of another high-ranking member of a faction. The rival may interfere with your missions, hire their own agents to accomplish the same goals before you can try, or even try to bribe or coerce you into their employment. Additionally, your patron's enemy has enough sway to ensure your patron has -2 influence with the enemy's faction. What faction would be good as an enemy faction?
Inquisition, guys.
Inquisition.
Right.
Gotta be.
Yeah. So that's definitely going to have to be Ordo Hereticus.
Yeah.
Because
quite possibly, yeah.
It wouldn't be... Malleus doesn't make sense, neither does Xenos. So it's going to be an Ordo Hereticus Inquisitor.
We don't really know this.
We're trying to fix the Empire. We're trying to fix the Imperium, so therefore it's Hereticus.
Right. Yep.
It makes perfect sense.
Well, that was a fun start. So influence obviously grants bonus success levels on things, on actions that may involve where that influence is useful. And that's the patron sorted out. If I look at the sheet correctly, boons, liabilities, demeanor, motivation, duty, pay grade, faction, patron name, influence. There's also contacts and intel, which you can add in. That's as you develop further influence and contacts of your own. But that's basically that part of character creation done. So, any other points anyone wishes to raise about that currently?
What's the patron's name?
Yeah, we should figure that out.
Yeah, you need a patron's name. I'm going to leave these questions up to you. You can just fill them in. Pick the gender, I say gender. I mean, we're wearing a mask. Gender is quite fluid in the Imperium, really.
Yeah. I'm feeling a very stern name, like Archon or something.
Oh, well, that's a good...
I was thinking the exact opposite direction. I was thinking of something like Aurora or...
Yeah. You know what? I kind of like an Aurora. I think that's kind of zesty right there.
If you give me a moment, I can bring out this from the GM screen. So this is the extra pack. I think it has some... Does it have a name table on it? I think it does somewhere.
Yeah, I'm sure someone as well as me.
We've got a table for noble titles.
Perfect.
A title would be good. So somebody.
Let's roll three separate D10s.
One for each of us.
Yep.
All right.
No, guys, someone roll.
A 5. So they are Lord. So that's made that choice on.
Is Lady a separate title?
Lady is a separate one on here.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, you can have a lady that's a lord in this setting. That's cool.
Yeah.
Rank. What's the rank?
10.
So it's Lord Prefectus. And the other D10?
A 9.
Of Subsector Alpha. So that's their previous Lord Prefectus of Subsector Alpha of, and we'll figure out which world.
Wow.
We need to figure out some names. Do we have a table? I'm sure there was a table of names in Core Book.
I'm sure someone as well has made a 40k name generator.
There's hundreds out there. There's hundreds of them out there.
Definitely a name table in here, which we'll use. Yeah, there we go. Let's use a D100 on the High Gothic table.
Okay, I'll roll. Oh, okay, got 77.
So that's Lord Prefectus Scythia.
Is that with an S or a C?
Scythia.
Scythia. Okay, Scythia.
Oh, I like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we have a patron created, so that's a great start. And then really we're into kind of some other questions then of really where in the Macarius sector they're going to be operating out of. So I think we should start with a bit of an overview then for people that are kind of new to this. So the galaxy and the Macarium sector. The Macarium sector is quite important to the Imperium in general. It is perhaps one of the most productive subsectors for the Imperial war engine, producing numerous arms, vast armies, and a lot of other producing psychers that are taken off in the black ships. However, like much of the galaxy, the whole problem with the Macarium sector right now is that there was a period of time where almost all the worlds within it were cut off from each other and from the Imperium as a whole because of the Great Rift opening. So if you've watched everything about Wrath and Glory, you know that the Gilead sector sits pretty much within a pocket of the Great Rift and is on the very front lines of that, whereas the Macarium sector is far from that in the galactic west, and and Tails stretches off from pretty much from near where Earth is outwards, and is formed from numerous worlds, many thousands of worlds, thanks to a grand crusade led by Lord Solar Macarius back in 370 M41, so quite recent. And that area of space used to be made up of a former subsectors of the Imperium that had been lost over time and weren't sending back arms and munitions and armies back to the Imperium. So Lord Macarius rose through the ranks. He's part of nobility. And because of his influence and power, the High Lords of Terror were like, sure, okay, here's your armies, here are your fleets, go forth on a great crusade and bring back all of these worlds back into the Imperium. And that's pretty much what he did. And as a result, is essentially now considered a saint within the Imperium. However, just as he reached the end of his crusade, much to his chagrin, and then subsequently died, it all went to hell. So his generals below him, there are 7 of them, some of them were former warlords that he conquered, all started sniping at each other, and other generals and other commanders tried to take elements of the Macarium sector back as their own. And so what occurred was called the Macarium Heresy, which then led to Marines being sent in to quell all these uprisings. So there's been a lot of war recently within the last 1,000 years in this entire stretch of space that numbers thousands of worlds. Some of these worlds, as part of the Macarium Crusade, were obliterated, so they had exterminatus done upon them. Other worlds were never reclaimed or only shortly claimed and lie at the very edge of space or within areas which are considered haunted or a home to human societies that are actually even more high-tech than the Imperium itself. So they are worlds that the Adeptus Mechanicus would want, or they're worlds that are still in the thrall of alien or demonic entities. So there's quite a lot going on. Chick has a question.
Can our patron be like one of the Russian families that still tracks where they would be in the Russian noble hierarchy, except they're from a planet that was destroyed? Would that work in the lore?
Could they be from a world that was destroyed? I think
so. Even if they got their title back, their land is, space dust at this point. So
It would really depend, I think, on why the planet was Exterminatus, because a planet that is destroyed through Exterminatus, if that's kind of the idea you want, where the Inquisitor just blown their entire planet up, there's usually very good reasons why they've done that, and it's probably due to either corruption from the very, very bottom or corruption from the very, very top. But anybody from that planet or connections with that planet is never going to come back.
So
from the Inquisition side of things.
I'm assuming that both sides in this giant war would have been able to destroy planets because it was a kind of a civil war, right? So if
during the heresy,
faction,
during the heresy, there would have been armies of Astra Militarum that would have fallen under certain generals who said, no, we're succeeding from the Imperium.
Yeah, there is there is one planet in the Sithrius or whatever it's called, the big system, the big subsector, which was actually Exterminatus. Nobody knows why. So what's it called? Belmshuda was Exterminatus. No reason was given. The only thinking is there's a possible research base hidden deep below the surface. So maybe our patron knows what that research base is. So to get his name back, he wants to prove to the Imperium that actually the research base was either good or bad or something as an idea. So we can also then decide as to whether how that planet was Exterminatus. Was it virus bombed? Was it flame bombed?
That is interesting. I'm not sure if our patrons' goals will be so scrutable as that, but certainly that could be part of it. That's a really interesting thing in the setting, and that's what I think is so cool about Imperium Maledictum is that you really get into this sector, and it gives you some awesome things to explore, which are not usually there in the grander scheme of Warhammer 40,000. That's what makes this role-playing game so great.
There's like 50 pages of fluff on the subsectors, on the planets within the subsectors, the governance of them, the big players in each place. It massively expands the concepts of what you can do with 40k, rather than what most people think of, which is the Space Marines fighting heresies and things. It really, really kind of expands lore for the Imperium and what it is actually like to be an Imperial citizen. And I'm in love with the setting. This is what I want for 40k. I want gutter punk 40k that isn't just another rip-off of Necromunda.
Yeah.
Which is a great source of material, Necromunda, don't get me wrong. But
so if we have a look at the great thing about the way the book is laid out also, for each of the factions, there's chapters for each one that give you an overview of where in the sector they have some power, where their main for the Infractionists, there's less of a singular bastion of power. There are multiple power centers, hubs of influence. There's also some whispers, so some some rumors that you can be aware of, and then it gives you an idea of how they operate in the Imperium sector. So just briefly, I'll give you a quick overview of the Infractionists. The Infractionists obviously live on the periphery of society. Infractionists escape from this oppression in exchange for any future they might have had with Imperial society, turning to petty crimes like smuggling, theft, forgery, etc. Others go into organised crime like grand larceny, chemtrading, augmetic reclamation, wet work, and far worse. If there's profit to be had, the Infractionists will take the chance. So the thing is, if you've got as your patron a fallen Imperial noble, they are looking to find the evidence that is hidden somewhere in the vaults in the Administratum. Somewhere hidden in there are secrets, things that have been lost on purpose, that have the evidence that their noble house has a legitimate claim on a hive, on a world, and that the true enemy that orchestrated their downfall is some other faction, some other noble house, or it may be a member of the Imperial fleet or of the Astra Militarum that had some designs on their world or on their influence, or could also be due to some radical inquisitor or it may not even be radical inquisitor. It could just be some inquisitor with aspirations who thought, you know how I can get ahead? They're heretics, and I'm going to pin it all on them just because it works. So that gives you an idea of who your patron could be, why they have to keep their identity a secret, but also how they can also use their links to create forged identities, forged information, so they can gain influence through other groups. So they may also masquerade as an imperial noble of another house, and because they might have enough links through marriages and other artifacts from dowries and trade contracts, or a rogue trader, that'll also be quite useful, to create this identity that allows them to masquerade in high society when actually they're the mastermind behind this whole secret organization of their fallen house looking to reestablish themselves.
I'm in. This sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So within the Imperium... Yeah, I was going to say, within the Imperium sector then, it will mean there are various places that you could, take up as your main kind of like home, as it were. There are various syndicates that you can join. So there are things like the Trackless Chain, which is one smuggling group. There's also the Resin Syndicate, who are narco lords. There's the Zhao clan, who are fallen nobles from the world of Asterion, who obviously involved in various crimes, organized crimes. And there are some other whispers out there of other gang leaders and so forth. And then, of course, there is the entire threat of the Adeptus Arbites and their agents, who basically, the way to think of it is, if the Macarian vigilants are the local police enforcers on worlds, the Adeptus Arbites are the feds. They work cross-world, cross-sector, fighting against anything that breaks imperial law. And they're the ones you most probably would be most afraid of running into.
They have robot dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are some factions. So do you think your patron is a member of a criminal cartel, or are they just kind of more quiet about their operations and operate like as a false noble?
We don't know.
Yeah.
As the Angels, we don't know who Charlie is. We just, they give us, a call every now and again on the speakerphone, and Bosley tells us what the mission is, and we go do it, and they pay us well.
I like that.
It certainly fits, I think, within that kind of starter level.
We are
gang.
not high enough in the pyramid scheme to know what's going on.
It's not a pyramid scheme. It's a triangle, okay? And it's not a scheme. It's an organization.
Nice.
Okay.
I think if we keep it secret, and then we if we continue the game, we find out more, and we let Chris decide as the storyteller where it's going to go.
I'm going to make some decisions now because it makes my life easy looking at and picking things from book. I think let's go with what we've already picked out on some of these worlds, and we'll discuss other worlds as they come up if we need to.
I've put some notes into the sheet and sent it through, but we can, if you want more, I can add more in. So
I'm gonna say the most sensible place pick is the Scytherus subsector, and you are going to go with. So there is one criminal cartel which I think fits this fallen noble to also kind of just like keep low key and acquire the items to do their work, but also to maintain their appearance as a noble. Is the Forlan Goods and Services. So this syndicate operates in the Scytherus subsector. They specialize in rogue manufactorums to supply desperate worlds with unsanctified but cheaper goods. So there's kind of a noble element to this, which still fits the patron's ideals of trying to really bring true order to the sector. Their largest operation is on Desperon, where they also engage in theft and extortion to support their operations. And then based upon that, we can then pick a world. And it's the Scyther. So I think you're right with this, David, that the best world to pick, which kind of fits this, is likely... actually, do we want to go with that one, or do we go with the other one?
What was the name of the clan again, or the syndicate?
The Forlan Goods and Services.
Goods and Services, that was it.
So we could pick... let's see, which world is it interesting?
So for money-wise, Asterion is the money center, where literally the whole system that whole system there is cash rules everything around me. They are nearly heretical in their level of economical thought, that all tithes and all money goes to the emperor, which I'm assuming, there's a lot of shady deals going on there, I would guess. Persepolis is
that would explain why we're working for a shady dealer.
But that's all money. Persepolis is data mining. So if you've got any data information that you want, Persepolis, which is kind of like the main subsector planet of Scythius and quite important within the whole Macarian subsector. The only other one that I managed to read up on was Krultus, which is an agri-world, which had an uprising and then had a lot of problems with psychic awakenings and rogue psychers, which I'm not sure fits with us, but could be quite fun to play with at other points.
Yeah,
but then there's about 7 million other planets. So
there's so many worlds you could pick from. It's insane. There are like worlds which are just pure AdMech Forge worlds. There are other worlds. There's like a gas giant. I'm not too sure. That means everyone is based on actually all the settlements are on orbital docks or on the moons. There is there's a feral world called Elysia. There is Macaria. You could just go for Macaria. Macaria is
there could be a question. We can ask a question to maybe Chig and Crystal on this one.
Yeah.
Is our home base on a populated planet, or are we trying to hide ourselves? Are we going out into the wilderness and hiding? So are we hiding in the clouds of a gas giant? Are we hiding in the jungles of a feral planet? Or are we hiding in the hives of a populated planet?
Plain sight. We are in the depths of society.
Right, cool. So that rules out certain planets then. Just trying to level it down.
I think then on that basis, hiding in plain sight and the fact that you've got this kind of Dr. No / kind of criminal mastermind going on, maybe it is Macaria. So Macaria is pretty much like one of the first worlds of the conquest of the Macarius sector, and is also where Lord Solar Macarius was entombed. So this planet is more than just a hive world, because it is a sort of a hive world. It is a whole shrine world. So it is a planet covered by quite a lot of churches, cathedrals, shrines to various minor, I say not saints, but members of the ecclesiarchy of some importance will have been buried there. Also, there'd be tombs there to various nobles who were believed, sanctified enough to be buried on a shrine world rather than just in the tombs of their hive worlds. So, and within that populace, there are just going to be thousands of laborers who are building these alabaster cathedrals. There are going to be billions of pilgrims that come to this world, waiting for generations even for their family to go on to the next world, waiting for planetary passage off onto the next stage of the pilgrimage. And they're just going to be these gargantuan statues to various imperial heroes and space marines and so forth. So it'll be a very nice world to hide in, because there are billions of people to hide amongst.
There's also the guilds. There's big shipping guilds and merchant guilds within Macarius. It's where all of that kind of important trade and transport would happen. So would give connections to the rest of the system a lot easier than if you're on some backwater planet and suddenly you go, well, I need to go and do all this tradey stuff elsewhere. And it would be easy for us to get off planet and do other things. So Sexta Merchant Guilds, you've got the Edonian Combine, Carcass Fleets, and 2 other things, DeWanton Shipping. So there's different things that we can do with that from this one planet. Having kind of like a big planet like this makes certain things a bit easier.
The only danger is that also, because it's a shrine world, it is also got a huge presence of the Ordo Hereticus. So,
makes but maybe,
but maybe right that is the plan. Yeah, to be as close to the enemy so they don't look there.
Yeah, you're less likely to see the person stood next to you than you are the one you're looking at 10 foot away.
Yeah,
the cops never look for the criminals in their own home.
Yeah, indeed. And is this planet kind of a center of politics in the region as well? I'm getting that vibe. So I think that's a huge benefit to our patron and perhaps to us.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a political center because it is essentially the center of the ecclesiarchy in the entire sector. So the planetary governor of the planet is also the arch confessor of the entire subsector. So what they say about when you go to church and what sermons are going to be sung across all the worlds, that's said there. They tell you when to go on holidays, which isn't very often in the Imperium. But, you know.
So what's a holiday?
Yeah. And it's also a good place to for some recruitment if you want some highly skilled people, because you have the Schola Progenia, which is where orphans of nobles and of commanders and so forth are sent to be trained to be commissars, to be trained to be, you know, fleet commanders. That's where, or, you know, if they don't make it, if they're not considered good enough for those ranks, they're generally going to end up within the Inquisition as like interrogators and savants and so forth, or inquisitors themselves ultimately. So how does that all sound at this point?
Very agreeable.
Sounds like a great start to me.
Sounds like a good start, yeah.
Any other questions that we should talk about with regard to the setting and things? Because we've got to think about, obviously there's an element of character creation we still have to do. But, I mean, we could begin that. I mean, I'm looking at the clock. We could start that. It's up to you.
Certainly I have free time. I think we planned that to be different episodes. Maybe we can wrap this one up and then record a separate one for 2 weeks after this one releases.
Yeah.
I think if we do character gen now, we're going to miss that 3-parter thing.
Yeah. So, if we do this character creation, actual play, and then are we doing a debrief on the game as well? That'll mean it's actually a 4-parter. We've already breached our idea, but it's a deep dive still. It's up to you.
I feel like we always make comments though, like after, like we do kind of talk about it. So I feel like that's still within the limit. It's just we don't end up doing an entire episode on it.
Yeah, sure.
I think this is the deep dive, and then we can just say, did this work as the rules? Did this not work as the rules? Yeah. As a quick debrief at the end.
Active problem solving with stuff that we brainstorm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So any other questions or anything else that you're interested in with regard to maybe the system or the setting?
I haven't read the entire book yet. I was mostly focused on character creation stuff. I think my basic question would be that are the Xenos even discussed in this book, or does it really just focus down on the Imperium and humanity in this sector?
I actually know this.
So there are stat lines in the book for Xenos enemies and for demonic enemies. So you can face those. And within the recent time period of the Macarian sector, there have been issues with Xenos enemies. So mainly, more recently, there was issues with the Drukhari, who tried to essentially cut off the sector from the Imperium by attacking the Astra Telepathica relay stations. There's also other aliens beyond the edge of known space that aren't even the ones we commonly associate with Warhammer 40,000. So there is discussion of them, and because of the war footing and the fact that the Macarian system sector is so highly militarized, its population is more aware of Xenos races than other worlds would be, other sectors would be, and other population.
Cool.
Yeah, the bestiary is mostly human, and then you've got some heretics, 4 Xenos races, and then a load of demons, which could be fun to look at. But they tend to be the kind of higher level things you want to go and explore. Well, not explore, exterminate, hopefully. Explode. Yes, yeah. Unfortunately, no. There is no stat line for the space mushrooms, so there's no orcs. But it does have space birds and space dinosaurs in the form of Kroot.
Yeah.
And lots of murdery elves, as we just said. But this at the moment, this book is this system is very much based on go play some gutter punk, noir, gothic, human tales based on the Imperium.
And there's plenty of scope for that kind of intrigue and dealing with those sorts of conflicts, because the whole point is that because of the Great Rift opening and all the worlds temporarily being cut off from each other, I say temporarily, it was in about the span of about 5 or so years, worlds were cut off. So the astropaths were unable to communicate between worlds or even communicate beyond the sector. So in that time frame, again, you had a mini Macarium heresy where worlds started to go, why should we even send a tithe to Macarius? Why should we even send a tithe to Earth? Why should we raise armies? All those things.
Mm-hmm. It certainly messed things up. I just had a...
Yeah. That is a pretty decent one. And then like in Interrogator, there's stuff to do with like the Inquisition and horrible things of like the fact that there are so many psychers at this time in the Imperium due to the Great Rift. There's some very nasty kind of body horror going on. So any further questions? Anything else?
Nope.
Yeah, just excited to come back and make some characters.
Cool. Okay,
Same.
Well, we're going to wrap it up there then, I think, for this episode. We've basically done a brief overview. There's too much setting information to get through for the Macarius sector compared to the Gilead sector. For Wrath and Glory, that's really easy. For this, it's like there's a massive amount, but that's because you have so many options with your patrons and your characters that you can pick where they come from and who they are and so forth. So we'll be getting to that in the next episode, and then after that we'll get into the actual play. We'll be doing the intro scenario that is available for Wrath and Glory, and then as I said, we'll do our kind of debrief on it, and that'll be the end of this series, and then we'll be moving on after that to our next game that we'll be looking at. So that's it for now. So if you've got any questions, any opinions, contact us at darkdaysradio@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, find us on other social media at Dark Days Radio, because we're on Instagram, YouTube, Threads, Blue Sky, etc. And obviously catch up with all of our previous episodes and insights on other games and interviews and everything else to do with freelance writing and Warhammer. So that's it, and goodbye for now.
This has been an episode of Darker Days Radio. Special thanks to Occam's Laser for the intro, outro, and new bumper music from their hit album, 9 Circles. Check out the rest of their work at occamslaser.bandcamp.com.